Well, we have an exciting group with us today and a big crowd, so thanks very much. Jerry and his group are going to tell us all about their experiences in North Carolina and who they served.
And we have Doug.
And Doug's also
Yeah.
Good morning, Doug.
So we have 5 of the 7 from St. Michael's that went. So it'd be Joe and Sarah and Julie and Doug and myself. Steve and Becky Briggs also were there, but they have company just arrived in town. So that was the 7 of ours, and we had another 6, 3 from Iowa and 3 from Minnesota.
They're different time zone there. It's 7:30.
Yeah,
so
I know,
I
7:30.
didn't expect them to get up.
Yeah.
Although we got up way earlier than
Yeah,
that
we
those
got way
days.
earlier there. So yeah, it was good. So, and thank you for inviting us to talk about this wonderful experience that we had in North Carolina. And when we talk about something like this, I always contemplate. Well, we talk about mission trip, and I always think, why, and why now? Why us? You know, that sort of thing. And I know the rest of you can chime in, but we have a lot of background in mission work. I think every one of us here. I know you guys, Joe and Sarah, have been multiple trips. I've been on a number with Julie, and we were in Dominican Republic and Doug last spring. Doug and I think that was just about our 5th trip, and we've been, Louisiana, the Bahamas, Panhandle, Africa together, and then this one. So we have a lot of shared experience, and shared experience with some of the people coming from Iowa also. So a team of 13, planned 15 people. One of the people, our master drywall coming from Iowa, broke his hand the week before, and Maria Espinoza got flu, COVID, all kinds of things Sunday or weekend before, and so she was in tears saying she couldn't go. But we landed on 13 people, and so I'd like the group of us to think, so why do we do mission trips? Okay, and anybody want to chime in? Why do we do them? I mean, it's a big thing. It takes a lot of work. It takes resources. It takes a lot of coordination. So what are you guys thinking? Why do we do missions?
You're helping people, and that's a great feeling when you do that, especially when they're in need. And we have so much, but to go out of our way to leave these things behind and share what those people are going through. I think that's what missions are all about.
Okay.
I would say, I think a lot of people go into it thinking that, but I think on the other side of it, after you've done it a few times, it's actually you're helping yourself. So it really is more for me now going, because I get much more out of it than I think I actually.
Absolutely.
I'm not as good at sheetrocking as Jerry is, but I mean, some of the stuff is good, but I mean, it's kind of a.
That's right.
Well, your opinions may differ, but Father Vic, our host at St. Thomas in Burnsville, chimed right in on that one, because during his sermons, and we attended 2 services, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He chimed right in on that, and his assignment before becoming the interim priest here. He worked in Asheville with homeless, and he said, there's nothing that he had thought to give them, that he was just listening. He had no money for them. He had, nothing like that, but he just listened and listened, and in the end story coming away from that, the gift was back to him.
Yeah.
Jerry, I think it gives people hope too.
Yeah.
And that having received that with our unhappiness here in Sanibel, they're in it for the long haul, but you have these wonderful groups that come in that give you hope and inspire you to continue the long slog of what you need to do.
Yeah.
And for me, that was an important part of the people that came to this church to help us out all along the way, young and older folks who did whatever they could.
That was part of this mission too. The people that came from Michigan, they've been here the last 2 spring breaks and helping out a lot, and they just came in and helped, and we're just here, whatever you want us to do. And our summer group from Valrica, they came down. They've come down 2 summers in a row, and a couple more that have come also. But in the last fall, through the outreach committee, we had some extra money to give for disaster relief, and I think it's Sue Sterrett said she had some contacts with, and you'll know these people, Michael Burrell and Michael Crow, you know, and they're in Highlands in that area, and they really, people are cold. I mean, they don't have their shelters and everything. So we set aside $5,000 for heaters, and it went to the Rotary Club in Highlands and Mountaintop, that area. And so I think that sort of put it in the back of our mind that maybe there's something, maybe we can follow up with this and do something with that. So I checked with the people in Michigan. I said, are you coming? Where are you going? She says, we're going to Asheville. And I said, oh, can we join forces since we work so well together? And they're working through the Lutheran Disaster Services. And so I made contact with all those people, and nice place to stay, Lutheridge, everything. But I kept after and after, and they just didn't have, the information didn't come quick enough for me. I said, you know, where are you working and what will we need? What tools? And they said, well, we're not quite there yet. So I checked with the Diocese of Western North Carolina, and they were there. They said, we were working.
Episcopal Diocese.
Yeah, Episcopal Diocese, yeah. I'm sorry, not the Lutheran, but the Episcopal. And so I did a switch there, and I checked with them, and they said, we have a good partnership with some people in the area, and they've identified, like, I think 8 different sites, 8 different people that need help. They identified them through a social service agency, and you may think, we'll think of fish, but it's a mini fish, you know, type of thing. And it's run by basically one lady in the area in Spruce Pine. So when we said we're going to Spruce Pine, we didn't end up doing a whole lot of work there, but valuable work in Spruce Pine. A lot of it came in Burnsville, where we stayed. And that's where our host was, at St. Thomas Church in Burnsville. And the connection then would have been Hurricane Helene, and they got 30 inches of rain in about 12 hours, and microbursts of wind up to 90 miles an hour. So a lot of pushed over trees, a lot of flooding, a lot of snap trees, just a lot of destruction in those narrow valleys as we came through.
Is this in the mountains, Jerry? Where is it, like, mountain-wise?
The church where we're staying is 3,000 feet, about.
But there's water coming down.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
water coming down.
And when we're talking flooding, we're not talking inches, we are talking feet and not 10
And
feet.
fast, probably.
And not 10
Yeah.
feet, but out,
Yeah,
I mean,
moving
it's
water.
very,
And
moving water like a river coming through very wide. It
And
was a
it
lot
was-
of water.
And you had to kind of search for some damage, because the main road in Burnsville, you'll never be able to see that basically there was a lot of damage. But when you go into the little side roads up the valleys, that's where the water came down and it just wiped out the roads and the bridges. And so,
The diocese said that they were working with the Mennonites, Amish, and they're really good at jumping in and building things quickly. They were working on rebuilding 5,000 bridges. So what happens is the road comes down, and then the river comes through, and the roads that go up into the mountains where homes are, everything, just boom, all those bridges are out. So that's why it's such no electricity, no.
So those people are cut off.
People are just cut
If
off.
they're dependent on a bridge, they're cut off.
If they
Many-
survive.
So how do they,
Yeah,
I mean,
many
what do they do
people-
in the meantime? You don't build I mean, look at the causeway, for heaven's sake, it's 3 years.
We'll get into a little bit about the one place we worked, the social service agency. She had lots of tents, probably 15 or so of them. They're
18.
18, you got it. 18
Numbers
tents.
person.
Yeah.
15 or so, 18.
Yeah, 18 tents.
Well, it makes a difference
Yeah.
for one more tent.
Right.
One more tent to go. So anyhow, when you're in a group like this, you start looking and say, is this possible? Okay, and you just is it possible to do this? And you've done a lot of trips, and we just kind of take a look at it and say, well, sure, it's possible. You just have to put all the structure in place. So once you decide that that's something you would like to do, then the real work begins. And it doesn't begin when we started the first part of March. It doesn't begin the first part of February. It begins months and months ahead of time. So it began last fall. So the dates selected, I selected those dates because I thought we were going to be working with the missionary group, and that's their spring break. So I locked into that, and with several people I'd already locked into. And building a team, when you come up with 13, you've asked 30, maybe to go. And you've lost some along the way, you've gained some. We're sorry to have lost you, Mark. But
Yeah, I was
time.
disappointed too, let me tell you.
yeah, I know you're real disappointed. Mark was on the team and everything, but injured your shoulder a little bit. And I'm saying
I
that,
lifted 3 pounds yesterday.
yeah, I'm saying you would have never made it there, and you're fortunate you didn't go.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, a lot of lugging, a lot of demo, a lot of and the drywalling is hard, and everything's hard to do.
This was the most physical one I found.
Physical, yeah, it was physical. It was physical and it was cold. One day it was 4 wind chill and it was snowing.
I wore double long johns.
She wore double long johns the whole time. And the place we went, the major workplace we went, no sewer, no electricity, no water. Okay. And so all those things had to be put in place. So when you talk about the real work beginning, select the date and take a look at, is the work that they have to do possible for a team we might break in? And I always do kind of a skills survey, and like a 0 to 4. 0, I don't really want to do it, or I can't do it, and 4 is, and Joe said 4, you know, yes, I can do this. And we're talking about everything from drywalling to electricity to concrete to carpenter work to, you know, to plumbing to roofing to all kinds of things, and people just write down what they got. So I sent it to them, and I said, okay, we can match sites 2 and 8, which we ended up at. We can do that, okay? Then you have to build a team, and like I said, I just keep asking. Would you like to do this? You know, and yeah, we ended up with 13. Then you have to talk about money. How do we get there? Do we have enough tools? Where do we stay? What do we eat? And that sort of thing. So putting all that together, the list of what you should bring. Sarah helped with Cuba, you know, this is our list for Cuba? Yes.
I was just going to comment on the what to bring, what do we eat, what do we drink, and all that.
Yep.
Because in many cases, to your point, Bill, about being cut off, is if you don't take your food with you or your water with you, you're competing with the people who live there who also don't have any food or water or whatever else. So I just wanted to sure.
Right. Well, in Burnsville, as I said, the main town of Burnsville was still there. So grocery stores were all there.
Yeah.
But you're right. In some places, when you go, you basically have nothing, and then you are doing that.
We remember that well from October of 2002.
Right.
So we get to the point of, so how do we get there? And obviously, all of us here chose to fly, although we didn't have any further to go than probably the folks in Minnesota, right? Minnesota people drove because flying's prohibitive. The Iowa people drove, 2 groups drove separately on that. And so we, ground transportation and flying is how we got there. A little louder? Okay, sounds good. So the next question is, we're arriving at the airport and our work sites are 50 miles away, okay? So we either fly into Charlotte or we fly to Charlotte, hop to Asheville and come. Our group chose both of those options to do that. And it just so happened that people were coming and going at different times. Doug and I left on the 27th, I think, right, Doug? And to be the advanced team going in. So we met with their coordinators, who, by the way, were a retired brigadier general and a retired Green Beret, right?
Yeah.
All logistics people. So they've got these lists a mile long that I've never dealt with, and you do this and this and this and this and this.
They even had how to be safe with pyrotechnics on their list. I wanted to learn that.
Were you blowing things up while you were there?
No, I think they forgot to take it off the list.
It's the fire of the Holy Spirit
Right,
that we had to deal with.
So anyhow, Doug and I got to go in a couple days early, and we met that. As soon as we got off the plane, an hour later, we're meeting these coordinating people. They took us to both sites, and we go, oh, okay. You look at the one site was it's a mobile home. I'd say maybe 12 or 14 by 70. It's a big mobile home. Yeah, it's a big one. That mobile home park is on 3 levels. This lady was on the 3rd level. She's the only one that survived, and they got it back on blocks. And you'll see in the pictures as we're coming up in a bit that they were crushing the rest of them, getting them away, like we had huge piles here, you know, that sort of thing. But she's on the 3rd level by the river. And several people are saying, well, just trash it and buy a new one. Well, she's a Honduran immigrant with, you know, a family of, maybe 5, right? I think 2 sons and that young daughter.
I don't
I
know.
never
I
figured it
didn't
out.
see them.
I didn't know how Shirley was, but no English. So we did have a Spanish speaker with, and that worked out really well. And she could work on her phone with me. So now we work back and forth on the phone. We've been in touch pretty often. So anyhow, that's all she has. And so can we fix it back up? Somebody had started. Yeah.
There was also, Jerry, an emotional connection for her because her mother had died and left her a small inheritance, and that's what she used to buy the trailer.
Okay.
And so that was really her inheritance from her mother, was that trailer. So
Sure.
there was a very strong emotional connection to the trailer and not getting rid of it.
Yeah, and it's in. So you never know what you walk into. You never, and every trip is different. You just don't know what you walk into. You know, the weather, the conditions, everything are different every trip, no matter what. So we took a look at that and analyzed and said, yeah, we can do this. We'll try to figure out how we divide our time and how we do this with both of those sites. The other one was served as a social service agency in Central Latino, I think.
It was the Center for Distribution for Latinos.
Yeah, and she serves, I think she said 147 families or something like that. A week, yeah, a week. So a lot goes on there. And in the beginning, she got flooded with so many things. Initially, people said, well, she's a hoarder, and not at all. She got so many things in, and you'll see from pictures later that she started piling things up and saving everything so she could distribute to people and that sort of thing. She just really needed help. In the meantime, a big tree fell through her roof, and with 30 inches of rain, it put a foot and a half of water, foot and a half of water through the basement, which is her office and her bedroom. And now she stacked all this stuff everywhere. When you walk through the house, this stuff is good, this is good and everything, but you walk through it, and so part of our task was just to help her sort out. And the other task with the mobile home is, so how far can we get along in putting her back in this, okay? So after important thing is when you hit the ground, we need to have all these resources in place, okay? So you need to have, I should jump back and say, we needed air mattresses or something to sleep on. The church had nothing, and we're the first group in. So when you saw me standing out here saying, could we have some donations or whatever, for this, we bought 20 sets of air mattresses, sheets, pillows, pillowcases, all that. We ended up with $2,885, to do that, and it cost about $2,000. And I'll explain later where the rest of the money's going, but anyhow, so as we get on with this, you have all that on the ground, you have everything in place. We made sure everybody could get there, and everybody did, all their places. Julie was our chef, cook, whatever turned out to be.
You were in good hands.
She flew in with a friend from Minnesota. They stopped along the way, they shopped, and they brought all the food in. Amazing kitchen, wonderful facility. It's a church different than what a lot of us experience. The whole sanctuary and everything is one room, and the kitchen is right off the side of it. And getting to the sleeping quarters downstairs for the men, it was too much to put in an elevator, and if you had stairs, you had to have an elevator. So we have to go out and around there. But they did have a bathroom and the only shower. Okay. So we'll talk.
There's an aside about the shower I'd just like to share.
Oh, no, don't tell them. No.
I would just like to share.
This is about communications, right?
They all leave, so then I'm on my own, right? None of the men shared with me that the water control was backwards. So I turn it to hot and I wait. And I wait.
Oh.
And I wait. And I think, well, they didn't share that this was a cold shower, but this is how it's going to be. So then I commented later and they said, oh, no, it's backwards.
And Doug figured that out.
Yeah, typical men. I'm sorry, that was irrelevant, but it was important.
But clearly it made an impression.
It certainly did.
Shared it this morning.
Doug figured it out, told me. Neither one of us told anybody else. Not intentionally.
No.
And the food didn't get cut off, so we're okay. We're okay.
Surely men think backwards, so that's how that works.
Yeah.
That could be it. That could be it.
But anyhow, again to the church in the Episcopal Diocese of Western North Carolina had arranged with St. Thomas in Burnsville to house us. We came up with all the mattresses. Susan ordered them. We shipped them, up there, and they're not picking up mail to church, so that was a whole other story. They were held in the post office. Thank goodness, not sent back. And but ended up we have a good relationship with them and their vestry and that sort of thing. But if we have time, there are a lot of other stories there. But anyhow, I think probably should jump to a few pictures. And we took many, and I picked out a few that are on this board. This is the church, okay, St. Thomas. Sits about 3,000 feet. It's just a lovely little church. The entrance on the other side, but this is they have a walkway. Over to the left, you see some fencing. It's a long walkway. It goes all the way around at a big platform, there, and it overlooks the back of the church. And I said, so why this platform why is all this? And they said, oh, we throw ashes off of there, from the dearly departed, that sort of thing. It's a lovely view.
Are those planting boxes
Raised
there?
bed gardens. What I really liked, and if I were younger, I'd surely try it, was right to the right, there's a playground, little slide there. And so at the end of the slide, hit the ground at a 45-degree angle. So you could just go down that slide and roll all the way down the hill.
It's shaped like a boat. You can't see that from
Yeah,
here.
it's shaped like a boat, yeah. Talking about where we're saying the shower is, it's on the door to the right, the brown door to the right. You have to come out of the front of the church, go down the steps to the left, and wooden steps, and then down there. And we have enough cots for about 6 guys, and it turned out we only needed 5 down there. And the one to the left is a nonprofit that uses that, and we wouldn't get in there. Okay, next. So this is that area downstairs, and talking about their method, we supported and everything. This is how we turn them up and set them all up. And next. Excuse me. So upstairs, Vic says we don't have anything going on except Ash Wednesday. And so take all the chairs, rearrange them however you want, and we made little bedrooms all around the outside, And this happens to be the bedrooms of, not to get real private here, but Steve and Becky Briggs, So Sarah, on the other hand, was under the cross over in the corner.
Right on the altar.
I wanted the altar under the cross because she came on Monday, and we figured, well, okay, you're going to be coming on Monday, well, then we're going to put you under the cross.
I really appreciated Jerry was great in allowing the flexibility of the team to come and go, because most of the trips I've been on, you go with the team, you're with the team, and you're with the team all the time, and then you leave with the team. So. And
this time we came and went at all different, from the 27th of February, and people had to go back middle of the week, and they had to do a lot of, they had to get back to jobs and things like that. But as Doug said, Doug got into it, he said, oh, I just hate to go back. We're right in the middle of this job, and I got responsibilities. So he was gonna bug out, I think, on after Wednesday, but said, no, I'm working until Thursday noon before I have to catch my flight, because there are things that need to be done. And that's kind of how you get into it, and you think, it's such a part of you, and such a part of the people that you're serving, that say, no, we need to bring this to completion and stuff like that. Okay, next. So this is the part of the mobile home that we looked at. So this is how we first saw it. And a lot of mobile homes have that little porch on the side. Well, they raised it all up and blocked it and leveled it. However, it's just pulled away from the roof and everything, water pouring down through. So you kind of, in order to get in that door to the workplace, which is very cold because there's no electricity heat, you have to crawl up there practically. And okay,
so yeah. That's all stuff that's been remediated there on the right. Obviously, that's
how we found it.
Okay.
That's how we found it.
That's other trailers.
So who comes, we had our trash haulers day after day, mountains of Are they driving up there with these trash haulers to pick that stuff up? Who's gonna remove all the stuff?
They aren't, and I ask, you quickly make friends with everybody you see in the area, okay? So this guy operate, well, I'm gonna go on to the next slide, okay, and see if it's, okay.
There's a lot of stuff.
Okay, I'll explain that in just a moment though. Okay, so the steps are off. Here's Doug and Joe going, what do we do now? Steps are off. Okay, next. So this is how you kind of look at it, how we kind of found
Wow.
it. So this is the mobile home that survived. This is an Ian-like atmosphere. Everything to the right. Okay, next there. Everything to the right, these big claws that are over here, this is what's left of the other mobile homes. Bill, this is how they took it out of there. These are private contractors, and this thing is just stuffing trash on there, just getting it as full as they can. I would not want to be behind them when they're on the highway.
On a little trailer like that.
On a little trailer, yeah. I don't know how the trailer survived without being punctured or what it did. But anyhow, so I got to know Mark, who was the driver, and I said, how does this all happen? Is FEMA going to help with this? And he says, well, I hope so. FEMA might have been funding it, but these are private contractors coming out of there. So every other mobile home on that lot are in those piles. The river is just right behind them, and it just flowed through, and the mobile home took 7.5 feet of water.
That's what I'm saying, it was real, and when we walked down to the river, we
Yeah.
walked another, 10 feet in elevation
Yeah,
at
it
least
wasn't
down.
wasn't very high over the river, so.
It's
So-
amazing the mobile home wasn't just washed away.
Yeah.
It washed right
Yeah,
off
like
the
a boat.
foundation.
Yeah.
As we cleaned up the lot, there were things
Yeah.
sticking out of the ground, and you were trying to cut them off. What's this? I said, those are straps for mobile homes. So they ripped them from their straps and piled them. And we did have a group of kids coming in from the Episcopal School. I don't know the city, but it's near Washington, D.C.
Alexandria.
Alexandria, okay. 450 students, Episcopal students, from high school students from 24 countries and 34
Holy
states.
moly.
So they had a
Imagine
Not
feeding
all
them
of them came,
Julie.
not all of them came.
No.
Just a few of them.
It was interesting speaking with them. I talked with them about, well, why did you want to come here? And they said, well, they didn't want to be bored on here.
Well, they had spring break.
They had
That
spring
was
break.
spring break, so this
And they
was their
said they
way of.
didn't want to be bored. And those kids worked hard.
Oh, yeah.
They really did. They weren't,
Good.
every one of them did it.
As long as you gave them something to do.
You
right?
had
The
to
hard
tell
part
them
was
what to
coming up
do,
with what-
but
what
once
they
you
could do.
explained it, they went right to it.
I'll tell you an interesting story later about what they found with a nice souvenir I brought home. We'll get to that later. Anyhow, okay, next. So, we find the mobile home. Somebody's been in and done some work. There's a bathroom in this case, okay, so. And you look down through the way, and obviously the cabinets with 7.5 feet of water, those cabinets aren't gonna be any good. So our demo part is we have to strip all of that out, and any drywall that's left, any insulation that hasn't been replaced or has gotten wet, any ceiling that needs work on it, those all have to be done. So one of the things
That's
that,
good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice job.
one of the things that
Nice job.
the guys jumped onto, and I don't know Joe, I don't know Doug.
I think Doug was leading this time.
Yeah, well, we thought, okay, let's get a bottle jack and we can jack it up. And all at once we take it over, and Doug says, well, just use levers. And so we found long poles. Doug, you can explain that.
As they say, if you have a long enough lever and a pivotal point to put it on, you can move the world. And so we just got some of the 2x10s or 2x8s, and just put a little pivot point on there, and with levers on both ends of the porch, we're able to move it back to the trailer, jack it up, put some block underneath it, stabilize it, and then we're able to reattach the entire porch structure back to the mobile home itself, so that it's nice and solid now. And then the other guys, Joe and everybody, built a new set of stairs for the front to be able to get back up into the house instead of climbing up that rickety whole thing there.
Okay, next.
So,
Okay.
when we were there, this was one day, Piff, I don't know how many of you know Piff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He actually showed up, he drove up from
Hendersonville.
Hendersonville that day with his truck with some tools, which was fortunate because we needed, He had an extra shovel and some other stuff, but he helped us. There's like 4 of us working on this thing, and as you can imagine, we had one long pole kind of supporting one piece, and it was very wobbly, and so I kept worrying that we're gonna lose, because we'd pick up one side, and then the other side would be kind of cattywampus, and so I was very fortunate that he was there, but it was great seeing him again. I think he had a lot of fun, but he had to drive home. He left that.
Yeah, he said, well, I'm wearing out, guys. Just say hello to this person, that person, everything.
So
and,
great having him and seeing
say
him.
hello to a lot of people. And if we have time, we'll talk a little bit later because he's kind of in a fire zone right now. Okay, next. So, just an awful lot of demolition. I think this is Becky Briggs, although you can't see. So there was a window open and a back door, and the back door is just kind of hanging there. And so stuff started going out the windows. So every drywall that needed remaining, every piece of wet insulation, the bathtubs, the tile, the sinks, everything, the lower cabinets, they all came in pieces and went out the windows. And students helped carry things away. And okay, next.
Was there mold on the studs there? Interior framing?
Doug, speak to that about the mold, okay?
About the which?
The mold. Any mold.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of mold in the house there. Almost every structure that you would uncover, you would find black mold behind it. The cabinets, the woman wanted to try to save the upper cabinets, which were not in quite as bad a shape as the lower ones. At least she was happy to get rid of the lower ones. But every place we pulled out stuff, you would find black mold behind there. And even in, all the insulation, all the back of any of the masonite walls that were in there were all just completely covered with mold.
Yeah.
And
And
after we got everything cleaned out, then we, on 2 separate nights, I stayed behind and sprayed to try to kill all the mold that was in there before we started to put the sheetrock up.
yeah. And as you can see, the terrain outside, you have to be careful because this is frozen in the morning and it's all jumbled and there are blocks everywhere. This is Piff, by the way. There's Piff on the left.
This is
And
amazing.
Becky, and they're taking stuff from outside the window. And next. And also, there's some bigger things that came out the window. I think this is probably the cabinet framing, the kitchen cabinet.
Yeah.
I think the kitchen cabinets, right. So they all have to come out, the sink come out, set aside, and the top cabinets were stored for possible rehab. Whether they are or not, I don't know.
And that had all, so when you're looking over the middle person's head, had those all been pads for mobile homes? Is
Yeah.
that what this was?
Yeah.
Was a mobile home community?
Right.
Yeah.
And they're all gone now.
But they didn't have pads. It was on dirt.
Oh,
They don't have pads, they just have strapping.
I don't know what the straps went to underground, but they were
Yeah.
sticking out of the ground.
They're-
okay.
Yeah, really.
So they're not pouring concrete.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
So when I ask, what are you going to do here now? You just,
Yeah.
it's going to be a mobile, it's going to be a fifth wheel type community with movable trailers. There's no more tied down mobile homes. Jesus,
Not on that level.
on that level.
Mhm.
There are 2 more levels up above. Okay.
Okay.
So you get to meet the park manager, everybody that comes by, you strike up a conversation, how can you help? And how can you get her electricity, how can you get her sewer, and how can you get her water? And where are the lines, and da-da-da-da. So we keep prodding them to do that. Okay, next. After you clean up, then comes the insulation, stuff like that. So, and you can't recognize this person. Who do you think that person is? Sarah, yeah,
Oh.
Sarah. Okay, so cutting that insulation. The students found this wonderful knife out in the
Oh, that's what
cornfield.
I'm using.
Yeah, you do that knife.
Yeah, that's a
And it's-
serious knife.
The knife has a blade on it this long, and I'm always bringing a souvenir back and said, "Oh, machete or knife, big old knife." And so I tried cutting that and just sliced like butter right through that. And so you take one slice for the paper, and a couple more slices, and you're right through it. And it's better than scissors or anything. So here's Sarah wielding that big old knife. And of course, Linda won't allow me to have it in the house. So I showed her, she says, "Would you take that thing to the
You
school?"
brought it home with you?
Oh, yeah.
What, did you put it on your carry-on bag? Or?
No, in my boot.
In a booth.
I thought that was.
Great idea, Jerry.
No, it was out. The kids found out in the field. They found all sorts of.
I love it.
Okay,
It was
next.
very sharp.
And so here we are. This is Pat, I think. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is Pat. This is one of our Minnesota group finishing up some insulating. Okay, and next. And then, boom, 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 master drywaller job, okay?
Nice.
So we're taking a look at things going up. So the drywall begins to go up, and this didn't happen until Thursday, probably, right? They took 3 days of demoing and cleaning to clean it all out. Now the insulation goes, and now the drywall. And this is Dave from Iowa. He's been on a number of trips with me and worked at a lot of different places too. He works with a retired military group too that does all sorts of rehab work.
So he's the taper.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we used tape. We only did the first line of muddings, so we didn't use tape.
Because it was 34 degrees.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was afraid it wasn't gonna
Yeah.
dry anyway.
What was the temperature?
34.
34.
And that was the warmest.
Almost every morning was in the 20s. Yeah.
We were
One morning
high.
it was
There's one morning it was in single digits.
yeah.
I feel like.
And that was the wind chill of 4 and snowing.
Pretty tough to do mudding. in
So
that
anyhow,
temperature.
cleaned out,
Cold.
drywalled up. Where is, oh, that's the living room, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Facing the front.
Yeah, that's a
Facing the
good one,
front.
facing the front. So all the rooms pretty much are done. There's some bathrooms yet to do. Okay. And then grounds pretty
We
well.
had snow one day.
Yes.
White sand, how pleasant.
White Sand Beach.
Grounds pretty well, cleaned up and everything. Okay. And that one, so that takes you through pretty much the mobile home. Okay. So we left her in a situation in working with the people there. Who are you going to bring in next? And these are the skills you need to do this. Okay. There's more drywalling you need to do. There's flooring you need to do. She lost her furnace, her water heater, all the electrical panel, all the bedroom furniture, the doors within the house, bathtubs, the sinks.
Where's the
everything.
money coming from to do that?
Well, I'll tell you that in a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
I'm always looking, opportunistic. So anyhow, we that was pretty much the end of the week. The other site we went to, and so Joe, Sarah, Rob, Isabel, and me, right?
Yes,
Okay.
5 of us.
Yeah, we went. Yeah. So we went to the other site, which was the nonprofit that Sylvia ran. She took in so much stuff and everything that there's no more room in the house. There's no more room up front. So she starts stacking in plastic bags
So
out
she
here.
actually had this distribution center before the hurricane
Yeah.
came through there. And this is looking at the back of her house, and down to the side, she used to have some sheds that she stored all this in.
Yeah.
And there was also an office for the nonprofit there. That was all wiped out by the hurricane. So.
Yeah. So go ahead. Next one. So things ended up intense.
Yeah, she said, we talked to her in advance because we had been told she was a hoarder and we probably should just throw all of this stuff away. And we talked to her in advance and asked her, what was she doing? And she said, well, after the hurricane, she goes, I was living in a tent here with my mother and her daughter. And also Sylvia was recently diagnosed with MS, and she has an 8-hour job that she works in addition to this nonprofit. And she said, I got to thinking everybody started donating things and I didn't have enough money for sheds, but she said, some people started donating tents. So I used the tents, and it was like a department store going in there. You had one tent that was for men and women's clothing, one tent for tools, one for cleaning supplies, one for sleeping bags. I mean, you can go on and on. We had a canned good tent. So when people would come, she would explain to them where everything was, and most of them came at night, like 10:30 at night, because they're trying to avoid ice. They don't want to be out in the time. So she was very clever how she had organized things.
This was a tool. This was a tool tent, by the way. And I said, how do you get to that hammer in the back?
And she knows where everything is in all of these. And that the big pile that you saw, that was leaned against her house, and it was probably about the 3/4 or 2/3 the size of this room, and very high, as high as the ceiling. And it was all clothing that she takes in. She washes everything before before she distributes it.
Yeah. So looking at stuff like this, nice. We set up and there's Robin and again Sarah and I don't know. Oh, some of the kids I think.
The kids, I think.
Yeah, some of the kids.
Church went
So put it tarps, and by the way, it's thawing here, and we're on a 30 to 40% incline. Okay.
Yeah.
And so everything out on tarps, and then we start distributing them in different tents. So help her organize to say, okay, this is, you know, this is a certain type of tool, these are light bulbs, this is toilet paper, this is whatever. So trying to get her back to a spot where she knows exactly where things are, okay? And so here's tents empty. Here the kids come with, you know, these are, I don't know what all these things are, but now it's something that you can go into the tent and you can actually find
We
things.
put labels on everything.
Yeah, label it all. Okay, so going up and down this hill.
Look at that.
So the more the time went on, the more we're falling on our rear ends and you know, it's muddy and the whole thing trying to get down this hill. We had torn apart the bottom to her bed inside because it flooded. We
It
didn't
was
need
a platform.
It was a big platform for a bed.
Yeah.
So we took our exhaust hose, cut it all apart, and creatively Joe says, well, we can make steps down the hillside. So go ahead. So that ended up. You know, we just made steps. Joe went to the hardware store multiple times.
Was the ground
Yeah,
frozen or
hardware
was
store.
it thawed?
And we just
By this time it had thawed out.
Thawed
So
out.
this was later in the week. I think we did this on Thursday.
Thursday, I think, yeah.
Morning.
Yeah, I think so. And you can see again, look up and down the sides, just stuff everywhere. That's all she could do. It's just overflowing. Some of the stuff we had taken out of her, she couldn't use her office or her bedroom because she had all that water.
And she couldn't get in too much to clean it. Or
There's
fix it
too
either
much, she
because
couldn't
there
get
was too
in.
much
So one of our parts was, okay, we're starting to bring this stuff, we're bagging things. She couldn't even get in to do the laundry because there's just bags everywhere.
She had 2 washing machines, 2 dryers.
Yeah. Now, you may say, oh, whoa, this looks so messy. Well, you should have seen the before shot. You couldn't basically see light through there. The table at the forefront is all you could see, and that's where she did some distribution. There was no aisle through there.
It was stacked as
to
high as
the
this.
top,
Where you see the refrigerator and the
Yeah.
boxes, it was stacked that high.
stacked that high. So,
So we took all of that down, the kids helped with that.
yeah. And so here's Sarah saying, okay, bring that, this is the kids' tent, you know, or something, and there were just, I didn't get a picture of all the tents, but in that area, there were probably 8 or so tents, right?
Right in front of the house.
Sarah?
Right in front of the house, there was 4 tents, and then in that area, there were 8 tents.
There were 8 tents, yeah. So the kids took all that and they dutifully took it here, there, and everywhere, and stacked things, stored things, covered it up with tarps, and did all sorts of things. So to get that. Now this is the area that had the platform for, this was her bedroom, okay? It had a platform in it and now all kinds of bags, black bags and everything in there. So we cut that all apart, cleaned it all out, and I didn't probably have a shot somewhere, but back from taking this picture was where her office is. You couldn't get to her desk, you couldn't get to anything, simply because it was full of bags and she had started drywall herself. So at least we got it cleaned out. And the next slide, the washer and dryer. Joe made a platform for that dryer, so we get it up off the floor. You couldn't get in there before much.
Well, we
because-
left the platform
Yeah.
and said we're gonna get it in the morning. We came back, it was already up on, she put it on the dryer herself.
I don't know how she got that dryer up there. We were
Yeah.
gonna,
Next morning, it
No
was
worries,
on
we're
the-
We were saving our, so we could come back the next day.
yeah, we're gonna work on that
She
wall.
put it on the
but
platform.
She got it on the platform on her holiday. Well, she used to be a kickboxer, by the way, so.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't kick it up there.
No, I don't know. But anyhow, as soon as we got that out, she's just doing load after load after load of laundry, you know, and getting it out. So it just helps to clear out the whole area. And here's Joe with all these tools, and so I need shelves upstairs in the closet, Joe. We need to fix this door. The back door would not close.
Yeah, I think when we first got there, she was pretty timid about letting us do anything.
Yeah.
So we talked to her.
Yeah.
And once she saw what we did,
We spent about 20 minutes talking to her at the beginning, and because we've been told she was a hoarder, And so we started talking to her, and all of a sudden we realized this woman is very creative in being able to do what she can to help others,
Very.
even in the situation that she has. And she was doing the best she can. She had a gorgeous shower she had built outside. When you went in there, it was like being in a forest shower. And you could see where she used to cook on there were 2 fire rings when she and her family were there, and there was another family living in a tent there too. And so they had to cook outside because they had no power or any way to do it. So, and then she wanted a ramp. The most important thing though was a ramp for her dog.
And when I walked in, I said, well, what can I do for you? And she said, well, my dog, she had 5 dogs, and she had an older dog laying on the couch. She said, what I really need is I need one of those steps for my dog to get to the couch. And I said, okay, well, we can see that.
Get to the couch.
And I was thinking,
We'll work on that.
and I was thinking, you know, well, okay, we can just go to the store and buy something maybe rather than build. But then she said, well, I want it to be 24 inches wide, and it needs to be exactly this because I'm going to slide it under the couch. And there's just enough room. And I said, okay. And so we taken the bed apart with a few screws and the extra wood. We built her a little dog ramp.
And hence Joe's expression.
That's fantastic.
Anyhow, can we go back to that?
Imagine bed, it became
Can we
steps.
go back to the one before? Okay.
This one?
It went ahead to the next one, that's all right. And hence his expression, oh, another set of shelves. But anyhow, we got the door working. It now locks. I mean, you couldn't close it because it hit the beam up above because everything's off whack. And so we did a few things like that. And Isabel filled in all the concrete below and, you know, to make it so the door doesn't have gaps in it, and you got better locks for it. And so now she can close the back door, you know, that sort of thing. But all in all, you know, we kind of got to a point where, okay, now we need some construction stuff. We're going back to the mobile home. So we only spent 2 days with her.
3 days.
3 days?
We were there 3 days.
Tuesday, Wednesday, okay, yeah. And so, but we got a huge amount done, you know, in that amount of time.
We helped her with her chickens. We got that all covered because she was very concerned about bird flu.
And then you get a picture of the pile after, because that first picture was a pile before we got there. By the time we left, it was twice as wide, and we used tarps to cover all of it up, so it was all covered by tarps.
That was the first picture, and I didn't get it where we'd added another 50 bags or so.
At least.
But from outside, from inside.
Yeah.
God bless her, you know, and who knows what's in those bags. I mean, clothing, sleeping bag, everything you can think of, but we didn't delve into that too much. But anyhow, I thought, you know, in the end, good. She felt really good about it. And on to the next. So, the other things that we not only worked those 2 sites, but St. Thomas. I said, what do you have that we can help you with? Well, Joe and I had explored the crawl space. This church is built on solid rock, by the way. This is amazing crawl space up through there with all the, you know, the sewer lines, the electricity and everything. The rector, there are no railings on the side. So the rector crawled up the day before like a silly person. Joe and I crawled down.
We went up on
backwards.
Monday and said, boy, this is a steep stairs. You
There's
better
a
be
steep
careful.
stairs, and it's only like 6-inch treads or something like that. And so next day, he goes back there for some reason, walks down it, and boom, 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 you know, that sort of thing. But he was okay. Joe says, okay, railing. So we did that. Okay, and next, and the door of the weather strip, you can see right through it. Julie says, when are we going to fix this? When are we going to fix this? You know, how to fix this. So Joe's working on that. There also was a big walkway around to that platform that overlooked the back of the church. And we noticed early on it had some rotten boards in it. Those were fixed. Lights were fixed outside. You know,
We finally realized there was a switch.
So, yeah, so a number of things, okay? And all of the time, Doug and I started working on this beginning, and it was a work in transition, let me tell you, from the time we started, put up all those shelves inside.
So this was 2 containers that the Episcopal Diocese had. Very nice containers. I don't know if they were renting them or if they had purchased them. If they purchased them, they spent a lot of money. But these were very nice containers.
Well, they were planning for the future. So they had actually bought these or rented them for the rest of the year. And they had actually bought tools and supplies, not only for the sites that we have, but also for teams coming in. So they had bought a whole set of tools for the next team. and they needed a place to put them and to organize them, so they had a trailer here for tools, it turned out, and a trailer
Yeah.
for more or less supplies.
So all through that, there was some transition in organization. And they spent, I looked at the one list, the first order was almost $8,000 in tools, and then they bought us more tools and supplies. So they bought drywall, 2x4s, 2x6s, flooring, all the mud and glue and everything that went with that. So it's like $8,000 worth of stuff they brought in. But we were the first team in, we're sort of an experiment, which I would say went very well for them, you know, so anyhow.
It was a good team to have in there as the first team, because you guys had a
it's
lot of
good team.
experience. In
I don't know, this could be the last one, is there one more? Ah,
Oh.
yes.
Thanks a lot. That was a cold
Nice.
day.
That was a cold day. This is the sanctuary,
Parish.
okay, of the church.
Nice.
Now, the mission is based on good food, you know, so, and
We had that in-
Julie was our cook, okay.
Well, she's more than a cook.
Yes,
Because it takes a lot of effort to cook for that many people, all 3 meals.
Right.
We had a hot breakfast almost every day, so she would get up at 5, go turn on the oven, and then after the oven had heated, she'd go back and put that in the oven and then start working in the kitchen before anybody else in this room was up. And
Tried to smoke them out one morning.
You're working on it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
having,
That's what they get for the cold water.
That was the day after that.
That's interesting.
I would say she was very much appreciated, and I hope you felt like you were part of the team, because you really were. By having someone there that can do that, she stayed back, she cooked all day long, we had these amazing meals, and then the group that was at the mobile home, they came home for lunch, they came back for lunch. And so she had the lunch ready for them as well.
Good for her.
And it's a lot of work, because Joe had participated in a youth group for many, many years that went on mission trips. And first all the kids did it, and each one would take a night and they'd cook. Now you can imagine having worked all day, then come back, and you're cooking for, they were cooking for what, 35, 40 people. It's a lot of work. And so she was just amazing. And to come back and have that prepared, all we had to do was take a shower and do it, it was fantastic.
Yeah, the youth have a lot more energy, so that they could do it. When you get our age, it was very nice to come back and just eat and then.
yeah.
I was just gonna
It
say.
was lights out at 7 or 7:30.
Sarah's going, I can't go to bed that
I
early.
did.
Well,
Speaking of
Too bad,
showers,
too sad.
since we only had one, they had also arranged for us to have showers at a health club. And that just happened to be in between our work site and the church, which turned out really well. And some of the women said, just wait till the guys shower, come in and take the shower down there, you know. It's private, it's good. So some of the people came, some of the women came down, and other Minnesota group, a lot of them, every day they would come by and
On the way
come
home
by.
from, yeah.
Yeah, and the health club was good. Just come on in, take a shower. You can use our facilities, and the community was good. And I have to say that the church, the vestry, the senior warden, it was like a mudslide, whatever. Took his whole home and everything away, and he was just getting back after 5 months to try to start putting things back together. And other people loaned us their trucks, you know, and all different kinds of things. But we need to break for start questions or whatever, because we're getting
Well, there
close to
was
the end
one
of our
other thing
time.
I'd like to mention.
Okay.
The woman who owned the mobile home, she cooked an amazing lunch for us one day.
Oh, yeah.
And there was so much food, and it was all, she's from
Honduras.
From Honduras. It was
Yeah.
all Honduras
It
food.
was
It was
wonderful.
very good. And, we didn't expect that. And I know that cost her a lot of money to do that. But it was
It was nice to be
very
able,
nice.
I'm sure for
And-
her to be able to pay us back, and that was.
yeah,
she
that,
could
you know
do
what,
it.
that, so you would ask, well, why was she doing that, and I think that really made her feel good to help
Yeah.
in a way that, because it was one of the ways that she could help.
Sure. Speaking of following up and what are we going to do next, when I talked to Piff, and he goes to a big church in Hendersonville, he says, "Oh, somebody donated $200,000 for Helene relief and stuff like that." I said, "Oh, did they?" You know, and I said, "Here is the list of everything that Turley needs in that mobile home." You know, doom. He says, "Oh, I'll talk to my rector." You know, so every chance you get, every person you meet, and so I've been in touch with them, say, okay, it might work, and we are sending, talk about leftover money, we sent $500 to the church for any added expenses, and they help us on the sheets and pillows, and $500 each to the mobile home and to the social service agency, because we had money left over from what was donated. And yes.
There's a question on Zoom. Mike Baldwin is asking, looks like you had at least electricity throughout your visit. Was that the case?
Yes and no.
The church.
Yeah, the church is fine, everything. It was just wonderful facilities with all the heat, the electricity, everything there was perfectly wonderful. The one work site with the mobile home, no sewer, no water, no electricity. So you can see us in those pictures pretty strongly clothed. The social service part of that, she had electricity and running water, sewer, everything.
But we did not use her.
We didn't use it.
We did not use her restroom facilities, because that wouldn't have, having that many people and all the kids troop into her house. So that was something that we had a designated driver that if you needed to go to the bathroom, you go give him 5 minutes notice, and then we round up whoever else needed to go, and then we had
did that pretty much.
We had a place that we could go.
Other questions? I know we've talked and haven't allowed you to talk. So, questions you might have. We know you are all mission people at heart, so you're some can make it, some cannot, and you've done a lot in your life. Say again?
I heard that the Amish really have a system to put up buildings really fast.
Oh, they do.
You didn't get a chance to see anything like that?
Didn't get a chance to see it. I have over the years, but they can put up a whole barn, a whole building in a day because they bring in a huge crew. That's what they're working on all the bridges. They'll come in on the weekends and just lay out do several bridges in one weekend.
Wow. And I saw a couple of those. They look nice. I mean, it was amazing how many of the little bridges. They're like individual bridges for a home almost.
Right.
I mean,
On their driveways.
on their driveway, which otherwise they have to park at the bottom and I guess crawl up the hillside.
Yeah.
But the minister even, I guess he was saying that after the hurricane, he was up at the top with his mother, or no, with his partner's mother, and they were stuck up there. They had no cell phone, they had no power, they had no water because the well was on electricity. But after a couple of days, the neighbors down below fortunately helped cut up the trees that were in the road. They still didn't get enough where he could get his truck down, but he had to walk the mother down the hill, and then it took him another week or so before they got enough where they could get back up there. So,
and she has Alzheimer's, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Questions? Wow, a silent group. Must have given you lots of information.
You said it all, Jerry. It's great.
Chuck Starrett says, boiler up, Sarah.
That's it.
yeah, there we go.
So anyhow, who knows when there is so much need, and now with climate change and so much happening across the United States, and prayerfully it doesn't hit us again. But one of the things that I've shared is why you do this is I think my life is. You can do it. I know my life has been so good, and I'm in all these 80 years or whatever. It's been amazing, and I think we talk about gratitude. I think that's one of the things that comes in my feeling is I am so grateful for what I've received, and I now feel so much gratitude and thanks for being able to get out and do this and to help. And every year I can possibly do it, I'll keep on going. Who knows how long? This could be my last trip. There could be 10 more. Who knows? So anyhow, we'll just keep at it. But it's just a matter of gratitude for being able to do it and to serve and to be there.
And we were the recipients of so much of that, right?
Yeah.
When the group from Valrico would come and help us out, and we did a little video presentation for those kids, showing them, the hurricane and the destruction and all of that. And walk them through all the parts of the remediation and starting to rebuild. And at the end of it, I would say, never underestimate the power of human kindness. You can't overestimate even small acts of kindness to make a difference for people who are hurting. And when we were in that situation and people came and did a vacation Bible school for island kids, and these kids were tromping through the swamps and helping out with CHR properties and all that stuff. You just can't overestimate the power of human kindness when people are in need. And so many thanks to all of you for your time and effort.
And I think to jump off that, Bill, when we go as a faith-based community, and Vic touched on this in his Ash Wednesday morning service, that we differentiate the different between helping and serving. And I think we often interchange those words innocently. But really when we go with a sense of service as we're called to go, we do offer that hope by walking alongside to give them hope that yes, I can take the next step. Whereas I didn't think I could until someone steps in and to walk with. Not that we're more skilled or we're more this or we're more that, but just doing what we're called to do and knowing, as long as that service idea is in our hearts, whatever word we use, I don't think matters.
When another thing that people often say, just send money, that sort of thing. And in a lot of cases, that is good. We received like $150,000 here for Ian, and just send money. And Doug and I were in Swaziland, or now called Eswatini, a number of years back, and people say it's just a waste of you guys going, with the group and everything. And but the bishop there said, "Oh no." She said, "It is so important that you come and people see that you are willing to come 8,000 miles and you're willing to sit and serve us and to be with us, to work alongside us. It is so important that they see your faces and that they know you're here in person to be with them, to pray with them, and to work with them." And I think that's that case everywhere you go.
It is. We had the same experience in Cuba.
Yeah.
They knew how to do everything. We were not there to teach them anything. They just
You alongside.
Just alongside.
Coming alongside.
Right.
And the resilience of these people is not unlike what I saw over here. The folks at this little church, they worship about 18 to 20 people, maybe more, 30 to 40 in the summer when the seasonal people come back, which they won't be able to this year. But the resilience, they were friendly, they were upbeat, they were hopeful, and grateful. But just not, they were so gracious to us, which was really lovely.
Bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you somehow.
Well done.
Thank you.